So in 1986, when I arrived, met Jeff Marshall, went up on Yam with Jeff Marshall and Brian Gross. Then I got introduced to double rope technique. We were taking pins. We had a hand drive bolt kit, sky hooks, and by then we were adding almost a double set of wires and a full rack of friends. And then I'd still huck in, a couple of old Chouinard hexes. To finish off your question, what kind of gear did we use on Yam? So the early first ascent, the first ascents that we were doing in 1986, we had, a double rack of wild country stoppers up to, I believe they were up to maybe size 9 back then. We had a rack of pins, maybe 6, 8, 9, 10 pins of all sizes, from blades to lost arrows. In some cases, we would take leapers. We also had the Chouinard micros, the Chouinard micro stoppers, which went from 0 to 4 at the time, maybe 1 to 4, but they were even smaller than the number 1 Wild Country Rock. And I remember, Jeff Marshall kind of come on, Steve, really? You're going to try to place those in our crap rock out here? And I'm like, and this was an ongoing argument, or not an argument, discussion that Jeff and I would have with differing viewpoints back in those days. Whereas Jeff would say his view was, look, Steve, I don't place crap. If it's not going to hold, I'm not going to place it. And I would say, well, Jeff, if you don't put it in, it definitely is not going to hold. And because of my experience on the Niagara Escarpment with tutelage from John Candorp, we had taken leader falls on Chouinard micros. In fact, so many that our number 3 micro, the wire finally snapped on a route we were working on when I took 6 or 8 falls on. These were 20-foot falls. And finally, the number 3 snapped, and the little aluminum wedge was still in the crack. So the rock didn't break, the cable snapped. And it had started to fray. I think back to it now. Well, we should have replaced it when it started to fray. We didn't. And we just fell on it until it broke. So I grew up with that and mentality. And on the Rockies Limestone, you could get a micro in, and maybe it wouldn't hold leader fall, but you might be able to get an 80-pound shake on it. You're just kind of putting half your weight, a half weight placement, or a body weight, now I gotta get a hook down, but I'm pumped, so it's very esoteric. And I remember when Jeff Powder talked to us about, he interviewed Jeff and Brian and I about the routes from 86. And one of his comments was, you're talking about free climbing and placing gear like an aid climber would talk. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, because that's what it is. That is what we're doing. And we can talk more about that later, placing sky hooks.
Man, that last line you said was amazing. Jeff Powder's you guys are talking about free climbing, placing bodyweight placements, this is what you guys are doing. Yeah, I've got so many.
So in 1983, we did a trip to Yosemite. We spent 7 weeks there. I was with John Candorp and Adam Gibbs and Kevin Lawler. Some of those guys have gone on. They're kind of household names on the Niagara Escarpment. Or John, was one of my early mentors. Adam Gibbs was also a mentor of mine. Kevin and I were peers back in the early 1980s, 1982. We sort of started climbing together, started leading together. We did a trip to Yosemite. Kevin and Adam and I did Washington Column. I was on the bivouac on Washington Column, and I said to Adam, we should try the nose. I was 19, he was 19. We're greenhorns from Southern Ontario, we should try it. So we climbed the nose, and then we did the regular northwest face on Half Dome. And I learned a ton, the big wall systems. Both John and Adam taught me a ton about big wall systems, rope systems, reversing pendulum, seconding pendulums, leading pendulums, which later became a cornerstone of free climbing safety tactics on extreme limestone. Because, some of this stuff is very esoteric. Some of this stuff, who's even heard of it now? Okay? So, who would even do it? He would even consider it. It would not be an issue because you'd drill a 3/8 stainless steel bolt and that you'd lower your grandmother off with confidence, okay? So you're out on some windswept, godforsaken limestone wall and you're way, way out there, okay? It's like, oh, it's not going to go. You got to get down. Okay, so, what are you going to do? If you're climbing on a single 11 mil, you're going to get that crappy knife blade in. And we were remiss, and it's okay, it's going to hold body weight. Well, we could drill a self-drive, but it was kind of against our religion. Like if we didn't have to, we weren't going to do it. So you're going to put in your single piece and you're going to lower off it 80 feet back to the station, okay? And you're going to be cleaning the gear as you go. So if you're 10 feet from the belay and the poles, you're taking a 150-foot fall with rope stretch, okay? So bad idea, right? Bad idea. So what do? Climb on double ropes. And you position yourself, okay, I'm going to lower off, this on this 8 mil, 9 mil, okay? But I'm going to get my belayer to take in on the other line. So he's going to lower me on one line, and I'm still going to be on lead on the other one. So as I'm back cleaning, I'm only ever 5-6 feet from a piece, or 10, or whatever it is. I still have the lead gear in protecting me if that piece fails. And that was, big wall stuff. That came out of big wall tactics. So how to stay safe lowering off a piece of crap that might only be body weight. And then, so what do you do when you're going to lower off a crappy piece, body weight placement? Okay, well, you're going to do the aggressive test on a sling. You're going to jump on that thing. And if it's your only, if your last piece is 40 feet down, you're going to hold on to the rock and you're going to jump test it. You're going to do the aggressive test and on it so that it's going to hold some multiple of body weight. And I had recently quit engineering school, okay? And so I had learned that the difference between a quasi-statically applied load and a suddenly applied load versus a shock load. And unknown to many climbers, from a technical standpoint, if you have let's just say it's a steel ball and you have a pin here, okay, and you lower that ball onto the pin, let's say this is a 1 kilogram or a 1 pound ball, and you lower it carefully, you can get it down to 1 pound. You take your hand away, it's 1 pound on the pin. But if you have it sitting on the pin and you pull the pin out, it's 2 pounds. Suddenly applied load. Now you shock load that motherfucker, pardon me. You shock load that piece and it's multiple of the weight, okay? So when you do that aggressive test and you're a 200-pound guy, 150-pound guy, you can create 500 pounds, 600, 700 pounds of force. Okay, now okay, you know what? if I just clip the 8.5 or the 9 mil in and I fucking very carefully come down, quasi-statically applied, I got a safety factor of at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, maybe 4. And it gives you confidence to escape off of that kind of serious terrain.